Well, welcome back, everybody, to CBM Calling for show number 38. Now, if you'd told me that 6 or 8 weeks ago, whenever this began, I wouldn't have believed it. But here we are, we're live again. And today we are talking about justice, dignity, and great coffee. So we've all had to give up so much in a short amount of time with this pandemic outbreak. And I'll sacrifice time with extended family and friends and dinners out, um, and, and concerts and hanging out with friends. But I am really hard pressed to give up my good coffee. So allow me to introduce you to my personal coffee roasters. It was supposed to be 2 coffee roasters, it's only 1. This is Gustavo, and he and his wife Leena, who is at home, I understand, with the kids today. They're the owners of Firebat Roastery in Oakville. And hang on, I am getting some sound feed. Hold on. All right. So hang on, I'm just getting, I'm so new to this, Gustavo. Please, I apologize. Just like I'm trying to mute my colleague on the call with me. Okay, I can't seem to do it. So Christina, if you're on there, can you mute your microphone for me? So Gustavo, you and I met about a year ago when we were looking for coffee for our CBM store. And through a very odd series of events, which included private swimming lessons for neither of us, I had a chance to meet with you at the Roastery in Oakville, and I got to see and smell the aroma of the place that you're in right now. And I got to hear firsthand about your passion for coffee. And so welcome to CBM Calling. I'm glad to get the chance to chat with you here live.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the time as well.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about yourself and Leena. I know she's not here to speak for herself, if you like, and about how the business got going.
Yeah, for sure. So I am originally born and raised in El Salvador. And Leena, and this is because it's part of the story, she is a Finnish citizen. And we met in El Salvador, and around 2014, we both were reaching close to our 40s, and we both felt that we wanted a change in our lives. We both had corporate careers. We went the path of, higher studies, business studies, and all that. But there was after some years of working in the corporate world, we felt that something was missing, although we had no crisis at that time in our family or any reason whatsoever to resign or migrate or do the things that we did. But yeah, what I tell my friends, it was increasingly painful for us to stay in that bubble, so to speak. And around 2014, we started the paperwork to migrate to Canada. And the reason why Canada, it's because we were hungry for the mentality that we feel that is very present in Canada, which is multiculturalism, lots of openness. I know maybe it varies from place to place, but that's what we saw and felt, and that has been our experience as well in Oakville.
Hmm.
So I was an avid coffee roaster by myself at that time. And again, weird circumstances put me in contact with who now is my business partner in El Salvador and best friend. And he polished my roasting skills and taught me a lot of things about copying, how to detect good coffees from bad coffees, and so on. And we started Firebat in 2016 in Canada with all the passion against all business books. And but here we are.
Yeah, very good, very good. Well, thanks. In the CBM office, we have a pretty distinct line between the Tim's drinkers and the Starbucks drinkers, and I won't admit which camp I was in. However, I have switched my coffee purchases to exclusively drinking your coffee. And just like your business partner, Ricardo, has shared his experience and brought you up, I'm going to ask you now to show me again how we're going to make the perfect cup of coffee. And then we're going to carry on with our conversation. But I'm pretty much set up here. I do have to boil some water, but I'm going to hand it over to you. Give us the tips on how to do this, and I'm going to try and build my own perfect cup beside me.
Okay, perfect. So, coffee, they say it's the most complex beverage on earth, and the reason is because you do it 3 times. So it's done at the farm level, then it's done at the roastery, and then finally it's the brewing. And each step really can make a huge difference on how good or bad it is. So I also, another disclaimer, the perfect cup of coffee is the one that you like. Okay, so I will share you the one that I enjoy, and you can add more coffee, less water, etc., and adjust it. But we will use this device, the AeroPress, which is super compact, super easy, so we don't have to, because of convenience, drink ugly coffees. Okay, so
Well, I have mine. I
yeah.
apologize if you're getting the sound of my kettle getting to 95 degrees, as I know you're going to tell me it needs to be. Forgive me, it's almost done. But I have my AeroPress set up here as well. So I've got my coffee. How much coffee am I supposed to have?
So what we're gonna use, the AeroPress comes with this scoop
Yeah.
that is slightly larger than the ones that we get for home usually. It holds 23 grams of coffee. So we will start with that. We will get a full scoop. We will place it inside the AeroPress. Okay.
Yeah, you and I do this differently because I have an AeroPress that was introduced to me years ago, and I love it. And somebody showed me the way you're about to do it. Somebody said, no, that's the way you're supposed to do it. I thought, that's bonkers. So you go ahead with your weirdo version, and I'm going to get my
Okay.
water, getting my water in here, and I'm going to join you.
Perfect. All right. So then we just pour about 1/3 of the capacity of the AeroPress with the hot water. And we use the stirrer to remove any air pockets.
Yeah, I have a question for you about air pockets.
Yes.
Well, when I get my coffee from you and it comes in a bag and it's super fresh, it seems to have a lot of air, like the bubbles that appear in my making process.
Yes.
It's very
That
bubbly.
is.
But as I get to the end of the bag, not so much. Why is that?
Yes. That is the carbon dioxide. When you roast coffee, and especially in the next 8 days from the date of being roasted, it releases carbon dioxide. So that's what all those bubbles. That's what it is.
Okay. So I do mine a second time as well. I'm just going to top this up.
Okay. Then we will we top it up with water.
Right.
And for all our viewers, we already did this with the filter. It's a paper filter, and we just add a little water so it sticks to the surface. Okay. Then we just close. We do another stirring.
Oh, great. Hang on. I'm going to get another spoon there.
Close the lid.
Yeah, I'm just going to push down. For those of you at home, this AeroPress has been used so much that if I don't put it in boiling water, I don't get a good seal when I have to do this.
And now we just flip it over and push.
So yeah, I don't do the upside down method. That's the Terry Smith method. He's the guy that actually showed me how to do it. Terry's our executive director and a fellow AeroPress user, but he makes it your way. And I think he's nuts.
There we go.
All right, hang on. I need a bit more heft here. Now, Gustavo, you can, if you go back in the archives of the CBM calls that we've had so far, this is the first one we've done with a 2-camera shot in my house here. So this is a completely pro. All right, my friend, here we go.
Cheers.
To you. Nice to see you.
Took about a minute.
Mm-hmm. That's what I love about that AeroPress. Oh my gosh, that's good. That's what I love about that AeroPress. It's coffee when you need it.
Yeah.
And when I get up, that's definitely when I need it. Okay, so thank you for that. We're going to put in the comments below the instructions for how to make that. And I'm going to ask them to bring up on the screen where you can purchase the coffee from. All right, so you can get this coffee through CBM from the page that John is going to bring up on the screen right now. And it comes in this, there's my 5-pound bag came, I guess it was last week. You were when we were in touch, you said, yes, we're absolutely still shipping. So if you're interested in getting coffee safely to your home, I have a 5-pound bag. And Gustavo is holding the 1-pound bag. So we are offering 5 pounds anywhere in Canada with free shipping. So you can get that and order it on the website. When you get to the order part at the bottom, there's a little red highlight that says, do you want free shipping? And you say yes. You can have it shipped in any quantity and we'll ship it to you, but we can't ship it for free unless you order 5 pounds. So I'll tell you, that lasts me maybe a month, I think. Does that seem about right?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So we've got coffee in hand, and we know a little bit about our situation here. We're still in kind of lockdown mode and keeping our distance, and that's why we're not doing this side by side together. So, what are you hearing from back home? What are the conditions like in El Salvador under this COVID kind of crisis?
So El Salvador has been taking very strong measures, I would say, from a side of, what we call the first group of countries who got the pandemic going on, like Italy and Spain and then the States. But El Salvador, after they knew the severity of what was heading to El Salvador, they took very strong measures of restricting travel. People are not allowed to go to work. If you go out, you need to have a letter of your employer, for example, that explains why you have to go out. But that sounds very good from I would say, the health perspective, and definitely it has helped to avoid, a major outbreak. But then the problem in El Salvador, the big issue is that too many people work in the informal sector. So they really have to go out on a daily basis to get the daily income that they need. So it's a lot of pressure right now. It keeps building up, in terms of how to deal with, the necessity, but also to avoid a crisis. El Salvador probably has one of the weakest health systems in Central America.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a complex scenario right now, but people are locked up basically.
Yeah. I've heard that we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same storm. We're not all in the same boat. The fact that some of us can isolate, but that there are folks certainly in El Salvador that you would know that are still needing to go out. So, hey, listen, we're live on Facebook, so I'm just going to give a shout out to a few folks. Now, first of all, Bruno and Kathleen, I'm going to be talking to them next week, a little bit more about the work in El Salvador. But this coffee mug came from Bruno and Kathleen, so cheers, thank you. So say hi to Bill Mucho. Who's that? Oh, Mucho Gusto, thank you. So Bruno and Kathleen say hi. Mike Waddell is tuning in. He's my colleague. And Jennifer Lau, who you know, who was involved in the private swimming lessons that brought us together. And again, that wasn't Jennifer's private lessons. Jennifer is a very good swimmer, I understand. And Brenda Hulk says hi. Brenda and I have both been down to your place. Yeah. And Adrian Gardner tells me that I am making my coffee inappropriately. So he does it your method. So we're talking today about coffee, and I didn't know this, but that coffee is the second most sought after commodity in the world after crude oil. And maybe given these days, it might be the #1 sought after commodity now. So that's ahead of natural gas, it's ahead of gold. And with that kind of global demand, there is bound to be greed. And we know the profound effects of greed and what that leads to around whether that starts with cutting corners or into full-blown exploitation of people and the land. So can you give us a little bit of understanding of the, obviously it's complex, but give us a bit of an understanding as to what are the challenges around producing coffee, and then where are the pitfalls for what kind of goes wrong when greed enters into the equation?
Mhm, mhm. So, okay. So I would say greed maybe is a result in reality, but what I feel is that there are certain rules, economic rules, in how to play the, I would say, the profitable economical game that our civilization knows, right? So that system basically looks for a reduction, a perpetual reduction in costs with a perpetual increase in profits.
Mm.
And that math really does not work, particularly because when you think of cost, for the most part in coffee, those are wages, those are climate protections, for example, environmental issues. So if you don't have a way to put them into the equation, then those things start to fall off the wagon, basically. So the effects of that has been that the world since the 70s, when the modification of food started, or not started, but it was very much in place, and there was this growing need for coffee, particularly. There were some countries that took the place of the larger farms, the coffee farms of the world, basically Brazil, Vietnam, and that again happened at the cost of the environment, planting monocrops
Mm.
that now we are dealing with the erosion and all the effects of those practices. But what they did is they lowered the cost of production during those years, which basically pushed away many farmers that because of that scale, they were not able to, produce coffee in a commodity world, right?
Mm.
At those prices. So that started a process of, abandoning the farms, cutting corners. By that I mean just reducing the care for nature, for people, and that created lots of, again, migration from the farms to the cities, migrations from then the cities to other places like the United States, for example. And yeah, lots of pressure, basically, economical pressure.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, I'm hoping they're showing on the screen, just by contrast, that we were going to show a couple of pictures of what a farm looks like, as you talked about in that commodity farming in Brazil, the vast area that has to be wiped out for that kind of monoculture, and then is essentially grown in full-blown sun, which is, as you're going to, I'm sure, tell us, that is not the most beneficial way to get the best flavor. So even as you shared with me the idea that when you have producers that are out picking, that they're picking every possible bean, because their value in what they pick is only the value of what the market is going to sell that bag of beans for. So
Mm-hmm.
it becomes a devaluing of people's work. And
Yeah.
that's where you start to see inequity, and you start to see people just being treated by just the dollar value that they can bring. So their humanity goes. as opposed to, which you're going to show, and maybe I'll get John to pull up the slide of shade-grown coffee, right? Which is what really you and I are drinking here. This is what you guys are about. You're about ethical treatment of individuals and about ethical treatment of the land, that sort of thing. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about, like, what is the benefit when we get to smaller producers, and what you guys are doing with the collective that you're part of back in El Salvador. Explain a little bit more about the contrast of those two styles of farming and the people involved.
Yes, absolutely. So I will begin with, coffee is a beautiful fruit that looks like a grape or a cherry, and it has lots of sugars and lots of flavors. But again, with the food modification, the industry found some varieties that they can basically sustain extreme sunlight, but they have a downside, which is they are very bitter in flavor. So when you go into the small farmers, they are the ones, for example, in the first place, keeping alive the heirloom varieties of coffee, which are the most flavorful, the ones that got us into drinking coffee, basically. That's one. Number two, the shade-grown agriculture. Coffee, I find, is one of the very few agricultural products that can sustain diversity of life in the midst of an economical product, right? Such as coffee. So when you talk about shade grown, it's basically those farms serve as habitat in Central America for migratory birds. They keep the soil cool and protected and moist, and our water, underwater sources. So all those factors are in a way embedded into the practice of farming. Again, the downside, economical downside, is that you get less coffee per hectare in terms of in pounds than a mass produced one. So that coffee has to be more expensive, and that is where it starts to get finicky. But yeah, that basically are human advantages and environmental advantages of keeping a farm in an agroforestry methodology.
So the coffee that we're drinking and the coffee that we're offering through the collective cup is both responsible to the people that pick it with dignity, because there's my understanding, if remind me, that when people are picking on your farm and the farms that you're buying from, they're getting paid a day's wage.
Yes.
As opposed to the value of whatever they can put in that bag or in that hamper, right?
Yeah.
Which means that they're also more critical of the beans that they're picking.
They can be asked
underripe, overripe, and then it's all just going to turn into kind of a bland, horrid mush. They're actually picking the ripest beans, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So let's say one coffee tree, it ripens in a matter of 2 months in different stages. So the pickers, they have to keep going into the same rows of trees over and over to get the ripest. So yeah, in the mass world, you just take all you can, because the pickers get paid by the weight of the cherries that have been picked in that shift, so to say.
Yeah, we're all part of that ecosystem, right? In some way. Like, I love the way that you describe that around the shade grown. The fact that the birds that we are getting to appreciate that are coming back now here to Canada have made their way right across or coming from El Salvador. And when you wipe out the trees and you wipe out the ecosystem, we will feel the effects here as also in strange ways. So as we are part of that kind of ecosystem, when we want to make choices about the coffee, now I am telling you, everybody that's listening, this is the coffee you should be buying, and you should be getting it from our website. But if people are still in the grocery aisle and they're challenged to go, okay, should I buy fair trade? Do I buy direct trade? How do I make do I buy that that horror show of, dare I say, it's blue? I won't mention their name. It's blue and it comes in a tin and it's massive, and it's about $7. And I would never drink it. I would go without, I guess. But when you're in that aisle and you're faced with the choice, help me understand fair trade versus direct trade, or just that commercial, like there's no sign or seal of anything on that blue tin. It is coming from a conglomerate. So give us
Yeah.
a little bit of rundown on what those things look like.
Okay. So I would say first, when I see fairness or something like this being highlighted by a brand that also has another bucket that is not fair, that initially makes me wonder, right? Because if you know the volumes that those purchases are, we wouldn't be speaking about fairness if they would be fair to begin with. But the fair trade system was invented with very good intentions, and it's a notched up I would say, the standard status quo. And what it gives 10% of extra price to the farmers, and it has also a bottom that if price crashes, then they get that bottom. But again, the economic has changed so much in coffee that even fair trade, and I'm going to use very specific numbers. The coffee has been in per pound in green for about the last 4 years in the $1 mark per pound. So fair trade would be somewhere around 110, right? But the cost to produce that coffee is no less than 130. And if we would account for all the environmental issues and real sustainability, it will be close to $3. So unless you can buy directly, which is now the point of direct trade, and based on flavor and based on other aspects that allow us to bring that coffee to now is a niche, but to a market that can see that and value that, then the farmers get easy twice or three times what they would get in the commodity world. So that's one thing. Then another is fair trade. In order to be certified, you have to be in a cooperative of producers. And what we saw with coffee, and this is a human nature, if the different lots of coffee are being mixed among different producers, there is not really a high incentive for any of them to produce something outstanding, because they know it will be blended inevitably at the end. So again, because we love these heirloom varieties and we want them to continue existing, we promote that way of commerce, that buying single varieties, single farms, and highlighting those notes like they do in wine, for example, here in Canada.
Yeah, well, I'm going to reach over here because when you sent me my 5-pound bag, you were very gracious and sent me a little taste of another variety here. But the thing that really got me, other than your kids doing this little design on this bag for me, that was very nicely done. It says Firebat Farm collaboration with Nacho Gutierrez. You just told me the guy that grew these heirloom beans. Mm-hmm. It's that kind of high touch that that we're talking about, even with the collective cup, with that bag that of coffee that I got behind me that we're promoting through CBM and through your roastery. Because as we've heard you talk about, this is a justice issue, really. Coffee drinking is about justice. And if you want to spend $7 on a massive tin, somebody is paying the cost of that. And so we have done our best to deliver this product with you. And I'm excited to say that it's $1 more than a cost of Starbucks. If you were to buy a pound of Starbucks, our pound of this coffee, which is serving justice when you serve coffee, is $1 more. So we're not making any profit on that. And next week, I'm going to talk with Bruno and Kathleen, because when you buy Collective Cup coffee through CBM, you're supporting with dignity the farmers that you're in touch with, and the funds and proceeds we are putting back into our own programming in El Salvador, in rural communities, providing latrines to stabilize the water conditions and the water table for rural communities. So it's cyclical for us with this. So we feel like we're supporting farmers and we're supporting other communities by selling this coffee. So we're trying to add a value. You're going to drink coffee. You know you're going to drink coffee. You get to make a choice as to where you want to spend your dollars, because that's where you apply your values.
Yeah.
So
Gordon, there's also an added benefit that when you go to small farmers like this. And you mentioned at the very beginning that there's a group of people who like Tim Hortons. There's a group who like Starbucks. But the constant in both is that they lean to the dark roast all the time. And I would like to explain a little bit why that is.
Okay, you do that because we get asked for dark roast coffee, and I have retrained my taste buds, thanks to you, to switch to this, because I used to love the Starburnt coffee, as you called
Me
it.
too. Me too.
All right, well, you sort us out. You sort us out on this versus burnt.
Yeah, around 2008, 2007, me too. I also liked it. I used to order a triple shot cappuccino. But no, what happens with the dark roast is, because this being an agricultural product, just like grapes, with wine, the only way to standardize it, that it has the same flavor everywhere you go all the time, is to kill all the flavors. So by dark roast, and this is, if you cook something and you overcook it, then you lose all those flavors. It's the same with coffee. But milk does the trick, right? Milk and sugar does the trick for that. But the dark roast is really a tool to hide green beans or defects in coffee that will not be pleasant to you if they will be in the lighter roasts.
Gotcha.
However, we don't have coffee with defects at Firebat or unevenly picked or all that. So if you want a batch of dark roast, we can do it for you. No problem.
Well, thank you. I think I'm going to wrap it up. So I appreciate your time. I'm sorry we didn't get to meet Leena on the screen today, but as I mentioned off the top, she is at home with the kids. It's a complex time for all of us, eh? Like business partners, life partners, raising kids. Yeah, complex days for you, indeed.
Yeah.
And for all of us. But thanks for your time today. It's a little bit of getting us sorted out. And I will encourage you, listener, watcher, viewer, that Collective Cup is available from the website. 5 pounds will get shipped to you for free, the proceeds of which are getting sent back into our latrines projects back in El Salvador. And so at some point, you and I are going to El Salvador together, and I will get to see the farm, just like Bruno and Kathleen were at the farm and met your business partner. I'm actually going to ask John to bring up those pictures now, because I know Bruno's on the screen and they sent me those pictures. So thanks again, my friend. Thanks for nice to have coffee with you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
yeah, so we'll look forward to our continued exploration of how we can provide extra value to churches and to you at home. Because if your church wants to serve this coffee, you're serving coffee already. I know you are. So you can get on that website. There's a calculator on there that you helped us program as to how much coffee your church is going to need when we all get back to church, Lord willing, when that day comes. We should be having the best coffee we can have. So thanks for introducing us to your world and to some of the complexities and your passions. So that's greatly appreciated. So thank you
Kurt.
all. Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in. And we will be back on Monday on this channel. And we will be talking about another complex issue, which is hunger. So Monday we'll have Lucy Taylor Lewis from the Canadian Food Grains Bank and Rachel Conway Dole from the BFAD Network, which is a Baptist World Aid Forum for Development. And they'll be discussing what we see on the horizon as the coming food crisis. So another complex conversation on Monday, but we wish you all the best. God bless. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.